So good evening, everyone. Today is a little bit hot. Oh, weather seems. So we will start with a short mindful breathing exercise, watching mindfully for a few moments. Then we can invite us coming here together to listen and to engage in discussions. May it becoming cause and conditions to correct realizations of the wisdom realizing emptiness. By understanding the meaning of emptiness as being dependent arisings, and the meaning of dependent arising as being as an emptiness. Through the realization of correctly understanding the emptiness, may we be able to reduce and eliminate all the afflictive emotions, the negative emotions, completely from the very root of it. And it's a selfish attitude with the help of the Bodhicitta mind. And through the realization of the bodhicitta and wisdom realizing emptiness, may we be able to achieve our highest potential, the fully awakened state. As soon as possible, in order to be greatest help and benefit to each and every sentient beings. And I'm going to try to practice as much as possible in order to be benefit to others and to achieve the full potential of fully awakened state. Everything I do, may it become cause for that. Okay.
You can start with the prayers. Is the Shakyamuni Buddha. To the founder, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed, transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. Homage to the Supreme Buddha, homage to the Dharma refuge, homage to the great Sangha, to all three ever devout homage. To all worthy of respect, bowing with bodies as many as all realms' atoms in all aspects. With supreme faith, I pay homage. Do not commit any non-virtuous actions. Perform only perfect virtuous actions. Subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. A star, a visual aberration, a flame of a lamp, an illusion, a drop of dew or a bubble, a dream, a flash of lightning, a cloud. See conditioned things as such. Through these merits may sentient beings attain the rank of all-seeing, subdue the foe of faults, and be delivered from samsara's ocean, perturbed by the waves of aging, sickness, and death. Art of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra. I prostrate to the Arya Triple Gem. Thus did I hear at one time. The Bhagavan was dwelling on mass of Vulture's Mountain, Rajgriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. At that time, the Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. Also at that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara looked upon the very practice of the profound perfection of wisdom and beheld those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Then, through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara. How should any son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom? He said that, and the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra. Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom should look upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those five aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Form is empty. Emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form is also not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, likewise, all phenomena are emptiness, without characteristic, unproduced, unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. Shariputra, therefore, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no visual form, no sound, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, and no phenomenon. There is no I element, and so on, up to and including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. There is no ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to and including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. Similarly, there is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Shariputra, therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell in the perfection of wisdom, the mind without obscuration and without fear. Having completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times also manifestly completely awaken to unsurpassable, perfect, complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra of the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, should be known as truth, since it is not false. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is declared. Gayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasamgate Bodhi So. Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Then the Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that, it is like that. One should practice the profound perfection of wisdom just as you have indicated. Even the Tathagatas rejoice. The Bhagavan, having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Arya Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, along with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, were overjoyed and highly praised that spoken by the Bhagavan. Short mandala offering. Sashi Bhakti Yoshi Oh Indo Na Shiva Idam Guru Refuge in venerating Bodhicitta. Sangye Charan Soge Chonam La Janju Padu Dani Gyapsu Che Dagi Chushin Gibe Sonam Ge Jola Penje Sangye Drubar Yo Sangye Charan Soge Chonam La Janju Padu Dani Gyapsu Che Dagi Chushin Gibe Sonam Ge Jola Penje Sangye Drubar Sangye Charan Soge Chonam La Janju Padu Dani Gyapsu Je Dagi Chushe Gibe Sonam Ge Jola Penje Sangye Drubar Angye Tuje Nizone To Tanje Pambeje Tambe Chune Tenje Pe Kodam De La Cha Cha
So last week we came to the, where Lama Tsongkhapa explained, when he understood the meaning of dependent arising, and through that, the Buddha's essential teachings and the practice, then he can have the image of Buddha of enlightened with all the, physical enlightened mark and the speech and that, and through that, just by thinking and of that image in that, it give a very soothing and cooling and calm and peaceful. So then we come to verse number 46. I think we finish after verse number 45. And in verse number 46, it says, this excellent system, most marvelous. So this excellent system of the Buddha's teachings, and especially the teaching on dependent arising, this is the most excellent teaching and system, which is the most marvelous. Even though that is the case, some individuals who are not so learned, some individuals, even though they might proclaim they are expertise, but they have not done enough study and research, on all those different Buddha's teachings, and especially on dependent arising extensively. And when you don't do that, then have entangled it in other confusions, just like the triangle bulbous grass. So with this particular grass, it is kind of very entangled one with another, like the nets, one with each like that. So similarly, is saying, those who have not studied and enough, then they're entangled with confusions of the Buddha's teachings, and especially, the teaching on emptiness and dependent arisings. And so confusion and misunderstandings, Seeing these situations, so Lama Tsongkhapa was saying that was the case in Tibet at that time. He saw, even a lot of teachers, masters, they were confused and entangled in that way, So seeing this situation at his time, at that time, I strove with a multitude of effort, So to follow after the learned ones and sought their intention again and again. So he said, in order to find, in order to realize, in order to understand the correct, unmistaken thoughts of the Buddha, So then he follows and try to study, directly with all his different masters, as well as through, studying himself by relying on the earlier masters' scriptures, not only the sutras, but the commentary by Nagarjunas, Buddha Palita, Baba Vikas, and Chandrakirti, all their writings, And not only he just study once or read once, but he tried to study again and again and again. And that is again Lama Tsongkhapa explaining how he studied and practiced, And at that time, at Lama Tsongkhapa's time, of course, our lineage, Gelug lineage, was established only after Lama Tsongkhapa came. And it's not like he started a new lineage, but after his followers started to kind of follow his, and then that became a lineage. But before that, there was already the other lineage, the lineage of Kadamba's masters, the lineage of, Sakya, Nyingma, Kagyu. And he studied all different masters. He studied not just with one lineage, he studied all those different masters. But even after studying all his masters, still he had some doubt, and his doubt was not clarified, and then he relied on a lot of the earlier Indian scriptures, starting to understand. Even with that, he struggles, and then eventually, through the help of Manjushri, then he was able to, and the other masters, direct masters, he was able to, kind of open the key to all the confusions and doubts that has. So again, he didn't rely on just one teacher. He studied with so many teachers at that time, and not only that, not only he studied with direct from Buddha, but like by himself, he did a lot of self studies, with their help, with all the great Indian masters' writings. And so, verse number 48. At such times as I studied numerous works, not just one, numerous works of both our own middle way, that is Madhyamika. So he studies Nagarjuna's writings and commentary to the Nagarjunas by the Buddha Palitas. Not only the commentary by the Buddha Palita, but also by Baba Bika, he was also a student of Nagarjuna. And not only that, then Chandrakiri, who came later, because there was kind of, as I mentioned last time, there was kind of different, even though Buddha Palita and Baba Bika, both are Nagarjuna students, they had a different little bit different understanding, And then Chandrakiri came, and then Chandrakiri defended Buddha Palita, saying his understanding was correct, and Baba Viveka's understanding was not the correct one. He made more clarity in that, so he made more clarity, and through that, then there is two Madhyamika, Bhasaka and Prasangika, So that Lama Tsongkhapa studied all of this, all those, and it is mentioned, in some, according to some, that before Lama Tsongkhapa, many of the Indian, Tibetan scholars at that time, they were unable to differentiate those two Madhyamikas. They thought they were same, And Lama Tsongkhapa, by studying Chandrakiri's writing, Buddha Palita's writing, Baba Bika, and then he found there's differences, subtle differences, And so that is in other schools, all other Buddhist schools of kindness, the Mainoli school, Sotandrika school, Babasika school, as well as he also studies, non-Buddhist philosophies or school of thoughts. So, so he did extensive studies. And you can see that from his writings. He has composed 18 volumes of, both Sutra and Tantra, and some of those philosophical texts, and also Tantra texts, if you see, he will quote all those different masters, what this master says regarding this particular points. And this master said this master said this master says. So he have studied all of that, and then he give conclusion what his personal view or what he think is the correct among those differences among different masters at that time. So that is that, and so there's so much richness in that. And my mind become tormented even more constantly by network of doubt, So first he studied those, and then again, and that is what also sometimes you hear the students, and myself sometimes. The more you study, sometimes the more doubt you have, and sometimes it's a good sign, If you don't study, there's no doubt. It is not a good sign. It doesn't mean it's a good sign just because you don't have doubt. Because you have studies and you want to understand more clarity and you see those small differences, and then that is where the doubt arises. And so then here it comes more clearly. 49. The night lily grove of Nagarjuna treatise, So he's saying, Lama Tsongkhapa then continued to study Nagarjuna's writings, the six root texts, and then many other texts in the form of praise, some of them in the form of advices, but mainly those 6 root texts that he composed. And within that, what is called the root of the wisdom or fundamental treatise, So Lama Tsongkhapa studied all of that. Not only he studied, he wrote some commentary on them as well, And Nagarjuna writings, whom you profess, Buddha himself professed that after 400 years after I die, that, so-called person with the name Nagarjuna in the South India, where it's described like the place of coconuts, and that is where you find a lot of, he will appear and then he will clarify some of my points of teaching or my thoughts. And not only one sutta, there are like 3-4 different suttas Buddha has professed about coming of Nagarjuna. So that is why he's saying, Nagarjuna, whom you profess, would unravel your excellent vehicle as it is, He will clarify or unravel or rediscover this unexcelled teachings and vehicle of Buddha, especially when it comes to the emptiness, and dependent arising emptiness. Shunning the stream of existence and non-existence, thereby unveiling the middle way. Middle way that is free from 2 extremes. The extreme of existence is when you believe the object exists truly or inherently. That is the extreme of existence. Because you regard the object to not only exist, but you regard or believe the object to exist inherently or truly. That is the one extreme. The other extreme of non-existence is when you believe the object does not exist at all. When you believe that object do not exist at all, then that is the other extreme. So free from those 2 extremes and then finding the middle way, So, illuminated, verse number 50, by the garland of white light of Chandra. Chandra means moon. The translation just kept the Sanskrit word. Actually, it's moon. Moon, like also it also referred to Chandrakiri's name as well. Chandra's well-uttered insight. Chandra, whose stainless wisdom of is full, who glides freely across scripture space. So Nagarjuna in his writings is given as an example like a night lily grove. Chandrakiri in his writing are given as like the white light dispelling the darkness. So again, as I mentioned, and it is the Chandrakiri that make some of the subtle differences, where he was able to, clarify some of the essential point and clarify of the object being non-inherent existence. And 51, who dispel the darkness of extremist heart and outshine the consolations of the false speaker. When through my teacher's kindness I saw this, my mind found a rest at last. So Lama Tsongkhapa was saying at the very beginning when he was studying some of the earliest non-Buddhist school of thought, and within the Buddhist school of thought, 4 tenets and middle way schools, he was having some doubt. The more after he studies that, more doubt started to arise. And then through the studying directly with the Nagarjuna's writings, and then as I mentioned, Buddha Palita, Bhavavika, and Chandrakiri, especially Nagarjuna and Chandrakiri's writing, then, through the help of his teachers, and through the help of my teacher kindness, he said, and here my teachers, refer to the both human and Manjushri through whom he received teachings as well. As I mentioned before, one of his teachers, Lama Umaba, is that he had the visions of, this teacher has the vision of black Manjushri. And from the very young age, he was shepherd when he was young. He went and when he went to look after the shepherd, and he kind of became what they call unconscious. And he got out of that, and since then he has the vision of the Manjushri, who was one of Lama Tsongkhapa's teacher, this teacher Umaba, Lama Umaba. And at the very beginning, sometime when Lama Tsongkhapa has praising cautions, especially when it comes to this kind of very, subtle, philosophical and importance on emptiness and so on, not only he studied with his teachers, when it comes to his studying of philosophy, Madhyamika, most of philosophy, he studied with one of the great Sakya masters. Randawa, Jejun Randawa. And then, even with that, when he still has some doubt, then he tried to put those cautions to Manjushri through the other teacher who has the visions. And through that, he was able to get some answers, some clarity on certain points that he was having difficulties understanding or doubt. And it mentioned later part, Lama Tsongkhapa, he has direct vision of now Manjushri himself. And then also, a lot of advice later part, he not only on those essential points, but on others, even when he was advised to go and do retreat. And when he went to do retreat, which student he should take with, so there were 8 students with whom he went on a retreat, long retreat. And each of, even that, which students that he should take, even that it said the Manjushri gave advice, among his thousands of students, some of the men. So 8 students and him, he went, they did a long-term retreat, So anyway, that was where, so here is I saw this, went through my teacher's kindness. I saw this in my mind. I found rest at last. So through the kindness of his teacher, Manjushri, and in persons, all of his teachers, finally, he understood, there's no contradiction between dependent arising and emptiness. While everything's empty, at the same time, there's a functioning of the objects. There's the law of cause and effect does not be negated, but while it is emptiness, at the same time, there is law of cause and effect. The functioning law of cause effect, dependent arising. Why there is functioning law of cause and effect and depending arising at the same time, they all are empty. And to understood, they are not contradictions, but actually they support each other's, they implement each other's. Not only they support and implement, not only they support each other's, complement each other's, but understanding meaning of dependent arising emptiness, meaning of emptiness as dependent arisings. When he came to that understanding realizations, then, when I saw this, my mind found a rest at last, and he found rest. All his doubt were clear. All his doubt that was kind of not giving his mind kind of rest with also many doubts, all that put to the rest. And I think that is also not only Lama Tsongkhapa, I think that is the struggle with most others who are practicing Buddhism and who are trying to understand emptiness. Because when we talk about emptiness, then they started to feel, then it means if object does not exist from its own side inherently, then that means there's no objects. There's no me, there's no you, there's no sentient beings, there's no nirvana, so then what is the point of me practicing? If there's no me, if there's no enlightenment, what is the point of me practicing? That kind of doubt arises. They think then there is no, and then why do you talk about law of cause and effect, karma? If everything is empty. But when you talk about emptiness, karma, and we talk about there is a self, and there is a karma due to your action that you will experience happiness or suffering, depending on your actions. And that depending on your action, you can be in samsara, you can be tied on samsara, or you can liberate from samsara. When we talk about all this path and bhumi and all this path, then you think again, if that's the case, then there must be something from its own side, objectively. Do you get it? So we struggle that to be, not to have that struggle. So that is where, again, Lama Tsongkhapa also have similar doubt and struggle at the very beginning. That is where, and that is why. But once I mentioned, as we went to the before, he went to the retreat, and he did, as he had been advised, did a combined practice of purification, accumulation of merit, Guru Yoga, and then continue to study and contemplate and meditate. And over the years after his retreat, and he has certain visions, of discussions of Nagarjuna and for others, great Indian scholars. And from there, then, passing, and then there was one kind of dark person who called Buddha Palita, and he handed out a book, a text, and with a particular kind of section in that he has that kind of dream and visions. And then, it's a text that he had studied many, many times before. And then again, he opened that next day, and again he tried to read, and then after that, he has this aha moment, enlightened moment of this understanding of the dependent arising emptiness. How everything could exist. How everything could exist, even though it's empty of existence from its own side, even though it's empty of existence inherently. Which is struggle before. How can thing exist if it does not exist from its own side, objectively or inherently? And after that, he had this experience, realizations that he found, that how things could exist, on dependent arising, even though they are empty of existence from its own side, existing from inherent existence. How everything exists on merely level, merely imputation level. That understanding, he had that realization in that. And once you have that, then his mind, he's found a rest at last, clear all the doubt that he had, that kind of struggles to see non-contradictions between the object not existing on its own side or inherently, at the same time the object existing on merely level or dependent arisings. So that's what it means. So again, with that also here, it explains what we learn from here is, of course, many, many things we learn from here, that even the Lama Tsongkhapa was great scholars and practitioner. It is mentioned, his shamatha, he has much more earlier. Even before that, she had shamatha much more earlier. And there is one, I heard that the monastery still exists, or that there is a pillar known as the pillar of shamatha. And it is said that, they were having a puja ceremonies, and Lama Tsongkhapa went to deep meditations just just in front of the pillar that in the, and he was so deep in that meditations, the puja was finished, everyone left, but he didn't, he was immersed in deep meditation for a long time. long time, and almost not being aware of that that's going to be there because he was in the deep meditations. So anyway, so Lama Tsongkhapa is mentioned Shamatha here is much more earlier. But when it comes to this realization of correct emptiness, it required much more practice and study and practice, and it came through that. And so with that, what Lama Tsongkhapa also explained in his commentary to the Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise, as well as his commentary, the Chandrakiri's middleway supplementary. He mentioned one of the most difficult point of correct understanding emptiness of the Madhyamika is to be able to understand how things can exist on merely level, even though there is no existence of the object from its own side objectively, inherently, but how things could exist, on merely level, on the basis of merely level, merely imputed, and that dependent arisings. And that is one of the most subtle, difficult point of understanding realization. And so, so that is where it is. So then again, because again, you have heard so many times, you have seen, even in sutras, Buddha has mentioned time to time how all the objects, just like in Has Sutra, where he goes, there's in emptiness, there's no form, no appealing, no discrimination, all that, In many of the Prasana Paramita Sutra, Buddha goes, the list goes more and more, and bigger list. But then time to time, they all exist on merely nominations, merely label, merely imputations. You find such statement time to time. Also, you find in Arjuna's sometime. And that is where a lot of people struggles, a lot of struggles. How can thing exist on merely label? How can thing functions if it's just a merely label, if there's nothing from objective side? And that is the where difficult points are. And so that is Lama Tsongkhapa saying, when he saw that my mind found its rest at last. So it's just, we have to understand, it requires a lot of study, practice, and support of conducive conditions such as purification, accumulation, and so forth, to have such correct understanding. It doesn't come so easy for everyone unless they have those conditions. So, yeah, okay. And here he found this profound understanding or realizations of this, profound and essential understanding of correct understanding of emptiness or realization of emptiness. And even with that, he gave credit to his teachers. He says, I found that through the kindness of my teachers. Again, it shows another great qualities, we, ordinary beings, we try to take credit for ourselves, the hard work we did. And it's rare to give credit for us to have made those progress, those who supported us to be able to achieve that, to be able to do that. 52, of all your deeds, so of all the Buddha's deeds, and Buddha's countless deeds, but like in one of the prayers, I think it's by Nagarjuna, there's a recollection of 12 deeds of the Buddhas, even though you can say countless deeds, but major kind of 12 deeds, among some of the major deeds, then being renounced, leaving the palace, and the family life and being renounced, and then, all hardships, 6 years of hardship practice, and then enlightenment, and enlightenment after that, teachings, all of that, those are some of the major deeds. Among that, your speech is the supreme. Among those deeds, the deeds of turning the wheel of Dharma or teaching is the supreme. So again, even though again there is this, Buddha showing all the miracles, that one of the months we have miracle days, Tibetan first calendars from the first, in Tibetan calendar, the first month from the first day to until 15th, the full moon. Most of Buddha's major deeds are accomplished on the full moon, enlightenment, turning the wheel of Dharma, and this also miracles. And it was, that he was challenged by some of the earlier, especially that there were 6 very well-known earlier masters, non-Buddhist masters, because they were jealous with him, because they were losing all their students, starting to follow the Buddhas. Even their patron, the kings, and all these people were starting to follow Buddhas, which used to support them. And so, of course, it disturbed their mind. They were jealous of that. And they keep on repeating, Buddha is a great speaker, but he's not a great enlightened being. He has no power. He's just a speaker. And they say if you are enlightened, if you are something special, you have to show miracles and psychic powers, all of that. Buddha resisted that. He didn't want to show that. He didn't want to do that. He said, but they keep on spreading that message, and and to the local peoples as well as the patron, kings and all, why are you following him? He's nothing special. He's not a special being. He's not enlightened being as he's proclaimed. If he's that, he should have power. And they did have a miracles, like psychic powers and miracle they could do. They were not just ordinary. They had achieved great shamatha as well, and through those great shamatha, they have achieved a lot of inner qualities as well. So they were not just, and so they were, and then Buddha resisted for many, many years, and finally Buddha thought it was time to subdue them, and then that is when he did that. And for 15 days, they were doing all these different miracles, competing with those miracles. And on the full moon, then that is when it says Buddha defeated them through miracles. So again, normally if you see, miracles is supposed to be the supreme, but here, Lama Tsongkhapa, those are not the supreme or your deed. Your supreme deed is the deed of the speech, which is the teaching, the turning of wheel of Dharma, because that is where we benefit. That is where we Buddha has shown miracles. Maybe it might have benefited some people at that time, but it doesn't benefit us now. What help us? What benefit is his teachings? That the teachings are there, that we can study and we can contemplate and we can meditate on that, and through that meditation, we are able to transform our mind. Through that, we can liberate from the suffering and the delusions and achieve. What makes that is because of the Buddha's teachings. So that is where here, of all your deeds, your speech, your deed of teaching, turning the wheel of Dharma is the most supreme. And not only all the teaching, among all the teachings, the teaching on dependent arisings is the supreme. Because it's teaching on the dependent arising emptiness. That is the key, that wisdom relies on dependent arising and emptiness, a key to destroy all the afflictive emotion permanently from the very root, and to completely free from the samsara. Oh yeah, so there it comes. So generally the Buddha's teachings, or turning the wheel of the Supreme, within that too, within all the Buddha's teaching, it is this very speech. Is this very speech meaning the dependent arising, the teaching on dependent arising. Among all the teaching on dependent arising is the Supreme. So the wise should remember the Buddha through this teaching of dependent arisings, you know. So Lama Tsongkhapa saying, he too remembered the Buddha's kindness and Buddha's this image of with the enlightened mark by remembering his teaching of dependent arisings. And he advised so to others, you know, you should also try to remember Buddha's teaching on dependent arising through remembering and recollecting the Buddha's teaching of dependent arising. Then you also try to recollect and remember and keep the Buddha in your heart, in your mind. And that is, you know, yeah. Following such a teachers, you know, such as the Buddha, and having become a renunciate, so saying Lama Tsongkhapa himself became a ordained when he was young, you know, since he was young. So, you know, following the Buddha's footstep, you know, following the Buddha's teaching, then having become a renunciate, took an ordination, become a monk, and not only become a monk, have studied the conqueror words not too poorly, in saying, you know, not only he became a monk, but he did studies. And not only he studied extensively. He studied extensively. He studied very extensively through some of the greatest teachers at that time. And not only through some of the greatest teachers at that time, you know, as I mentioned, he studied by himself all those Indian masters' commentaries, and as well as by relying on Manjushri as well, you know. This monk, not only he studied, this monk, Lama Tsongkhapa, who starts in the yogi practice, not only he studied, then he practiced what he had studied, you know. Put those into practice. It's not just study for intellectual and just to intellectually studying and just to have the informations and knowledge, but in order to have transformations, in order to have transformation of your mind, then putting those what you have studied into the practice. Through such practice, then he was able to develop those realizations. Shamatha, Bodhisattva mind, and wisdom realizing emptiness dependent arisings. And when he had those realizations, then such is depth of his reference to the great share. And when he had that realization, his faith, his devotions, his confident trust in the Buddha, the share here means the Buddha, came from depth of his heart, from the very bottom of heart, as we mentioned before, unshakable, unmovable. It's not based on just reading a history, talking about how great Buddha was, but actually studying his writings. And not only studying, putting them into practice. Not only putting into practice, as a result of that, having those realizations. And having those realizations, then he saw the impact of that, transformations, delusions, ignorance and anger, attachment, all other delusion and selfish attitude, them reducing and getting rid of them. And when you feel that, when you have that experience, the faith, the devotions, the trust in the Buddha comes naturally. You don't have to meditate to have that. It just comes naturally. Reverence and respect for your teachers arises naturally, spontaneously, easily. The respect, the faith, and confidence in the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha arises, easily from the depth. So that is where Lama Tsongkhapa, he's saying, he's sharing his own experience. And so in one of the Lama Tsongkhapa's another writing prayers, where he advised the disciples, first engage in intensive studies. Intensive studies. And in the middle, try to understand all different Buddha's teaching, all of them as being instructions for practice, not as like something just for intellectuals. Some of them for intellectuals, some of them for practice, kind of differentiating among the Buddha's teachings, saying this is just for knowledge, just for understanding, and this is for practice, as the practice is different from that. But as it mentioned also Lamrim, to understand all the Buddha's teaching, all different Buddha's teaching that he gave, understand all of them as instructions to practice, And then at the end, try to practice day and night, all the time. Try to practice what you have studied. What you have studied by understanding all of them as an instrument, not instrument, instructions. So that all of them as an instructions, and then try to put into practice day and night, and then dedicate all for the flourish of the Dharma. So that is the kind of, in that prayer, giving advice to the followers how to follow. And not only he give advice, that's exactly how he also follow. Just these verses, as you can see. He did extensive studies. And not only he did extensive study, but he tried to put them into practice. And then next is the dedication and the prayer. Dedication and the prayer. And I think I've mentioned before, all the dedications are part of prayer, but not all prayer are part of dedications. I don't know whether it is so important, but generally there's a difference between dedication and prayer. Dedications, you created something and there is something to dedicate. Prayer, you can make any prayer, even if you don't have any, something you have created something and then you do prayer, but you can pray anytime in whatever way. But when you talk about dedication, there is something, some virtues or something to dedicate. So that is the difference. So then first dedicating. Dedicating to continue to meet qualified teachers, in the futures. Since it's due to my teacher's kindness, again, he said whatever, and that is also what was Adisha, Lama Adisha, he is mentioned here also, he always used to say, whatever good heart or warm heart that I have is through the kindness of my teacher, Selingba. He always used to say that and fold his hand, always. Similarly here, he said, since it's due to my teacher's kindness, I have met with the teaching of unexiled teachers, Buddha, that is a Buddha. So it's through having met the teachers, and through having met the teachers, through the kindness of teacher, that I have been able to study the Dharma, those scriptures, and not only study, to put them into practice, and having put practice, whatever realization that I have gained, that I've achieved, So due to all of that, I dedicate these virtues, and especially here also the virtue of writing this text, I dedicate this virtue towards the cause for all beings to be sustained by sublime spiritual mentors, So then dedicating for everyone to continue to meet and be under the guidance of qualified, authentic spiritual teachers, master, mentor, so that they can continue to study, practice, and continue to make progress in their path. So that, and then also more prayer, dedication. May the teaching of this beneficent one till world's end, So dedicating for the remain of these teachings until the samsara ends, world's end mean until the samsara ends. As long as similar to now Shantideva's, as long as space remain, as well as samsara remain, may I to remain similarly. Here is saying, as long as the samsara is there, as long as the no end to the samsaric world, may these teachings that benefit sentient beings continue to establish, and remain, and by unshaken by the winds of evil thoughts, and that the teaching continue to remain, maintain, flourish, and increase, and without being, declined or shaken by the winds of evil thoughts of, not understanding, wrong understanding, unhealthy doubt and wrong understanding, so for such evil thoughts. May it always be filled with those who find convictions in the teachers by understanding the teaching's true nature. And then May the world be filled with all those great practitioners, all those great practitioners who find convictions in the teachers, by understanding the teaching true nature, by understanding the Buddha's teachings, especially the true nature, is done by understanding the dependent arising emptiness and such convictions that come through reasoning logics, not a blind faith, not a blind conviction, a blind faith, but faith or convictions that is very much rooted in a reasoning logic, and that come, through correct understanding and realizations by having understood the teachings correctly and having put them into practice. And because, again, that was Lama Tsongkhapa, he developed that unshakable convictions and faith arise in Buddha when he had that realizations of the Buddha's teachings and dependent arisings. May I never falter, even for an instant, to uphold the excellent way of sage, the Buddha, which eliminate the principle of dependent origin through all my birth, even giving away my body and life. So Lama Tsongkhapa dedicating, praying, for him to hold all the Buddha's teachings, and to hold the Dharma, not only in this life, but in all future life, because that Dharma is the source of sentient beings' happiness, individual and collective happiness. And so therefore dedicating to be able to hold the Dharma. And when you talk about Dharma, there is scriptural Dharma and there is a Dharma of realizations. So scriptural Dharma first is the text, the books that we study, and then spiritual Dharma is after you study from the scripture, then you put in a practice, and then you start to develop those realizations, such as the wisdom, compassion. That is the experiential Dharma, to uphold both of them, scriptural as well as the experiential Dharma. And to do that, even if I give to my body and life in order to uphold those Dharma, may I be able to do that. So that is a dedication. May I spend day and night carefully reflecting on what means can I enhance this teaching achieved by the Supreme Savior through some effort over countless eons. Again, it such reflects incredible bodhisattva attitude. Incredible bodhisattva attitude. The bodhisattva attitude is, since I understand and I see, cultivating that Dharma within the sentient being's heart is the key to find their happiness. And so therefore, I'm going to uphold these teachings as much as I can, even if I need to give my own life and body to be able to hold up those teachings and enhance those teachings through more clarification if it is needed, to refine if it is needed. All of that, not only for this life, but for eons and eons, such as bodhisattva attitudes. if you don't have bodhisattva attitude, we would like to say, I wouldn't get out of this samsara as quick as possible. If there's a way. But here, eons and eons, if it is needed to uphold and to flourish and spread and to clear, to put effort to do that, not just one lifetime, but for eons and countless eons, And then dedicating and praying for the support from the Dharma protectors to do that. As I start in this with pure intentions, in order to benefit and help sentient beings to free from the samsara and the cause of samsara, may the Brahma, Indra, and the world's guidance and the protectors such as Mahakala unswervingly always assist me. And such as the four guidance of the four directions. And so with that, I think we conclude and finish the dependent arisings, in the Praise to Dependent Arising by Lama Tsongkhapa. So again, thank you for joining and making the effort to attend as much as possible. And now the key is, continue to study. You yourself continue to read commentary, the root text itself, and then, try to understand and try to put into practice what you have understood. In that way, then it can be helpful, beneficial. And again, not to give up just because sometimes some of those topics is not so easy to understand. If you don't study because it's difficult, then there wouldn't be a time when it becomes easy. It's more difficult, you have to study more. If it's easy, then, you don't have to study again and again because you have understood. It's more about putting into practice. But something you don't understand and you have a difficult understanding, then you need to do more research, more practice, more studies. Whether it's listening more, studying more, whether it's reading more, whether it's contemplating and reflecting more, all of that, So if there's any question, I will take. Yes, please. Can we pass so the people in the Zoom can hear to Tony? Oh, you and me, same. So it was you.
Great teaching, Geshe. Thank you very much. And specifically tonight, great teaching for me is that in that you've arisen in me doubt, and you've mentioned it 1,000 times tonight. So I'm right with that. And the doubt that has arisen is when you say that dependent arising is the key to understanding emptiness. For myself, yes. Also, emptiness would be the key for understanding dependent arising in my view, because like they're non-dual, one always points to the other. And like when I wake up tomorrow morning, Thursday, I could easily see dependent arising, exposing emptiness. And then when I wake up Friday, a different day, I could easily see emptiness exposing dependent arising. That's my view. That's my doubt. So help me with that.
Yes, and definitely, as you mentioned, understanding emptiness is key to understanding the subtle dependent arises. Not necessarily growth is for not a growth understanding of dependent arising. Even without understanding emptiness, someone can have a realizations and understanding of growth dependent arising. When I plant a seed of a flower, then I water it and I give all the condition, and then the plants grow and in whatever, and I can see dependent arising in that. That's growth level dependent arising. To understand that growth level dependent arisings, or to understand, have that realization, you don't need to have understanding emptiness. But to have an understanding of subtle level dependent arising, that is where when we're talking about depending on the level, the consciousness, the mind, how everything is merely level. In order to have that understanding, everything exists on dependent arising by depending on the mind, the level, the designations. On that level, then you need to have the understanding of emptiness. If you don't have the understanding emptiness, then this dependent arising, how everything exists on merely level, merely imputation, you wouldn't have that understanding. So to have that, then definitely, so it support each others, for sure. The subtle, the most subtle dependent arisings. Any other questions? Do we have?
I think there's a question on Zoom.
Yes, please.
Go ahead and unmute.
Amanda?
Okay. Geshe Sherab, this is a question about the refuge field. And I wondered, does the refuge field fill infinite space?
Well, you can visualize the refuge field, fill the whole space, infinite space, or you can visualize just one, as just one Buddha. So again, enlightened beings, the Buddha, can feel, even one Buddha can feel the whole infinite space, or they can come into the most smallest particles, smallest things. So there is no limitations like the external world or our world. The Buddha's enlightened mind has no limitations, so it can fill the whole infinite space, or it can be kind of, if you bring it, it can be the more, there is a story of Milarepa and his disciple Rejung. Rejung was, one of the Milarepa main students, and he went to India, studies. He studied with Milarepa, but also he went to India and studies. And because he studies in India, which Milarepa have never been to India, and so he went India and he studied with some of the also greatest masters in India at that time, and he brought a lot of other teachings and that. He started to feel a little bit kind of pride and arrogant, as though almost like that he was better than his teacher, Milarepa. There was time when he felt that way, And so anyway, so then one time, Milarepa, to reduce his ego and his arrogant and his, and there was some challenge, and so Milarepa met hell, big hell comings, and hell, HAIL, hell, through his big, and then Milarepa hide into a small it's in that story, in a horn. There is a horn of the dead animal he hide in. Rachel couldn't get inside because it's so small. Milarepa got inside and he protected from the hell, and Rachel couldn't. So that was one kind of things that he did to kind of reduce Rachel's death. And in that, it meant Milarepa didn't become small, nor the horn of the animals becoming bigger, but still, even that doesn't become bigger, or even the Milarepa didn't small, but he was able to fit in that. And that is, in one way, that is the explanations of the enlightened beings' qualities. It can be infinite, or also can become very small in that way. So it just reminds me of that stories. So therefore, same refuge, it can be infinite, or you can, you can visualize infinite, because if you visualize Buddha, there is infinite Buddha, there is infinite Bodhisattvas, there is infinite Arhat. And so if you visualize all of them, then it can feel filled with infinite world. Or you can just visualize one Buddha, with a Buddha Shakyamuni and a Buddha, and all in that, all encompasses that, because that the Buddha Shakyamuni encompasses all the Buddhas or any other Buddhas. So yeah, okay.
Geshe Sherab, is Guru Vajrasattva part of the refuge field?
Guru Vajrasattva. Yeah, I mean, when you do the refuge field or merit field, you always visualize is your root guru in the form of that merit field, whatever whole merit field or refuge field. So the guru is inseparable from the Vajrasattva, guru is inseparable from the Vajrapani, Vajradhara, guru is inseparable from the Yamataka, Manjushri. So you can see that in all. So yeah.
Thank you.
So in essence, it's the guru, but in the form of whatever deity you visualize as the refuge or merit field. If you visualize, let's say, you can visualize just one deity or figure, or you can visualize countless figures, but whatever you do, the main figure in the merit field or the refuge field, it could be Buddha Shakyamuni in that form, or it could be in Vajrasattva form, it could be Vajradhara form, it could be in Manjushri form, it could be in Tara's form, it could be in Avalokiteshvara, whichever deity, so whichever deity, but it's Guru, Guru Vajrasattva, Guru Vajradhara, Guru Manjushri, Guru Avalokiteshvara, Guru Buddha Shakyamuni, Guru Medicine Buddha, Guru Tara, so that is how that is, and so there can be one man, you can be just one aspect of the Buddha, which is in the Guru in the form of one Buddha, or you can have all other Buddha surrounding that main Buddha that you are visualizing as a main figure. So yeah. Any other questions? Is that dedication or questions or dedication? Okay. So then we'll do the dedications. Yeah, Mary, you had a question?
Yes, it was just it was two things, Geshe. Thank you so much for this incredible teaching. It's just been wonderful. I was wondering, the last verse, Mahakala was mentioned, and I'm wondering if you could just mention a little bit more about Mahakala. Why Mahakala there? Sorry.
Well, Mahakala is one of the protectors. common that Mahakala, that is kind of a protector, that is for all, whether it's Nyingma, whether it's Sacha, whether it's Gelu, whether it's Kagyu, they're all kind of, some protector, they are individual protectors, that some lineage practice, some other lineage doesn't practice. Some protectors, there is within the lineage, only certain teachers and their follower practice. But Mahakala is one of the most well-known protectors. It is even said he is the protector of Nalanda in India as well. So, yeah. So it could be that. And is
Thank you, Geshe.
yeah. Okay. Then we do the dedications.
Gewadiyo Lama Tsongkhapa Droa Chidam Male Salam Gupasho Jancho Sencho Rinpoche Make Panam Ge Gyochi Kewa Namba Mepa Gonde Gondo Pewa Shu Gangri Rawe Korwe Shinkam De Pendan Dewa Male Jome Tere Sewa Tenze Gyasoi Jape Sikte Parto Tengyuroche. So turn for Lama Tsongkhapa Rinpoche. Fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the most precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You are the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss! Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples.
Thank you very much, everyone, and good night. Thank you, thank you, thank you.